You know what she told me? She's a lady doctor, by the way, an Indian. And she'll leave sometime during the year and she'll go for a month or two back to India. I always like to think it's right around our Christmas time. Anyway, in fact, I asked her that one time. I said, well, is this your Christmas that you're going back for? Anyway, she told me, she said, you can't stop taking the medicine. So she renewed all my prescriptions. She tried to update one of them to a particular drug. And I was trying to keep the VA costs down, okay, Wayne? Because that's a lot of money you have to cash out all at once. Even though it's a month, usually a month in advance, you know, when you have to pay it, it still comes in, you got to pay it. So I told her I didn't want the drugs, and I had heard, you know, about it. It's more of a narcotic than what I was taking for pain. And I said, no, I don't want that. She said, well, you want to try this other one? She said, I can renew those. I said, I'll try those. So Saturday, went down to the mailbox, and here's 2 big packages from the VA of all my medicine. And so I'm thinking, oh my. Next month, when it comes time to pay the bills, it's going to be rough. I always try to ask her, well, is it cheaper through the VA or is it cheaper through Walmart's $4 plan? Because then I can get them for $4. But then they'll want to double up, give you a 3-month supply instead of a month supply, and then that 3-month supply is not on the $4 list, so you wind up paying more anyway. I had to keep her down to the monthly supply either, as well. But what I'm trying to say is here that sometimes we tend to get ahead of what God has called us for. We have to sometimes decide whether or not that medicine's doing the trick or whether it's not. And so I think some of us think, well, you know, I just don't think I can do that witnessing thing. I don't think I can be a Sunday school teacher or a deacon or have the little kids program over at the side. You know, some churches kind of alternate that off, and different ones take the little kids and have the service for them. So I've heard people say, well, I don't think I can do that. Some people think, well, I can't sing a special. When sometimes those old hymns sung by one person will mean more to a service than anything else. Simply because God has called that person to give their testimony in song. You follow? God has called them to do that. It makes no difference. You can play the piano or another musical instrument. I know of a person that plays the saxophone. A young fellow. And he thinks that he can't do that. You know, he did back several years ago. He's probably gotten much better at it now if he's still doing it, which I don't know. But he used to come to church and he'd play a special on that saxophone. And that really meant something in the service. You could just hear the music and feel that God was speaking through that instrument. All because I believe God called him to do just that at that particular time. Just like God calls you and I to listen. You know, and makes it possible that we will hear the message that he is sending to us. The important thing here was Jesus called them just like he does today, and he said, come, follow me. Do we really want this church to grow? You know, I can't help but think about Father's Day just passed. And I'm going to ask Beth this because I know she puts that on the, out over the internet, on the computer. And she notices all the people that follow that. But didn't I see how many likes was on the computer concerning the Father's Day?
11.
See?
And
Somewhere. What was that?
I think someone shared it also.
Okay. People are sharing that. So we don't know how far reaching that 11 is going to be. I noticed that Debbie Green was one of the likes on that, and she even had a comment, right? So you see, it was the same way with Mother's Day. Debbie has had another post on there, I noticed, concerning one of the messages that was preached from this pulpit. So people are looking and watching, and we might think that we don't see all of that. And that's the reason I'm saying it this morning, is so that if you haven't had the opportunity to see how these things are going, that you know God is using those particular programs to further his kingdom's work. And you're part of it because you're here. You know, I would like to think that on Mother's Day next year and on Father's Day next year, we can add numbers to that, to each one of those. And what I'm saying here is that God is at work, and if we want to see our church grow, what are we going to have to do? What does God want us to do? I hope that you have looked at the Heritage Day board. I guess that's what we're calling the board that Karen's working on down in the basement. I noticed there were more improvements on it this morning, and I hope that you all are looking at that. I think that's important, that we know all of the history of the church, because some of us may not know. I, for one, did not know all of that. And I can look at it and I can see when the church was begun to be built and how it progressed. And so if I wanted to, I could go tell somebody else that might ask me, well, where's Maranatha Baptist Church at? I don't do that, but I can say, you just drive down 89 Highway and you'll see the frogs out front, and you'll know you're at Maranatha Baptist Church. We might think that those frogs aren't important. When I go to visit someone or I witness to someone, I can hand them a card and say, here, I'll give you one of my cards. Because it's like a business card, okay? But it has the information for the church. And on one side it says, fully rely on God. Now there's one of those cards hanging in the Colorado Cafe in Bland on their bulletin board. Now the only thing it doesn't have, it's only one-sided when it's hanging up there. So it only has my name and information that's on the back of the card. So I've been thinking, how can I show that the other side of that card says fully rely on God? Because I think that's important. And that's what God wants us to show to the world.